All right, it's another film study. It's a video film study. We haven't done one of these in a while, so if you're watching the video, you can see there's three of us up on the screen. So Ken, Dan, how are you guys doing?
Life's good, Josh. How about you?
I'm doing good. I mean, now that the Super Bowl is passed, I believe this is now considered our off-season content.
Right. Yep. Ready to build towards next season.
I'm ready to talk about the Ravens again. I'm tired of talking about those other playoff teams.
So this is the one where Ken convinces you that we're going to trade Lamar for Deshawn Watson.
Something like that.
Right. No, we've got something way more serious. The internet can handle that one. We're going to deal with some other stuff. So, Ken, what do we have tonight?
It's a very exciting podcast. So first of all, Dan Rees, my co-host for By the Numbers during the season, terrific guy. You know a lot of his work and a lot of his analytics, and still hoping to get a job someday in football, I'm sure. But Dan is joining us with a visualization of the Ravens cap situation that I think it takes you to another level from some of the other things you hear. So Brian McFarland, obviously the cap expert in terms of all the nuances of the thing, but we're going to get into visualizing the cap in a way that tells you what money can be moved around. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, just all these cap numbers, huge point of discussion this offseason with the lowered cap from COVID. So it's going to be a hot topic all until next season. And there's a lot of moving pieces. So I tried to put it together in a fashion where you can kind of see how the different pieces come in together, and how teams can get under the cap and how much money they got to spend and things like that.
All right, well, let's jump right to it, because the graph is the exciting thing here,
yeah.
and looking at the 2021 Ravens and what money is really fungible here, and what money you can't move around.
Perfect. All right, so all these numbers are from overthecap.com. Great resource for all cap-related numbers, so everyone should definitely check it out. So what we have here is the salary cap breakdown for all the players, for the top 51 players on the Ravens as of February 8th, so today. Just basically for each player, we've got a row going across, breaking down their salary. I'm going to zoom in a little bit throughout this presentation to just kind of show you what's going on. So you can see on the bottom, we've got the axis going from up to 15 million and all the players going across. For each player, there's kind of four different types of buckets that I put the salary cap into. First, I'll just kind of talk through what each of the buckets means, and what it represents in this graph. So the first one, which is the furthest right in this list, is the prorated bonus. So that's the kind of the easiest one to explain. Is when a player signs, gets a signing bonus, that bonus can be prorated over the length of the contract for up to a maximum of 5 years. So this is the portion of the 2021 cap that is attributable to that prorated signing bonus. That's a fixed bonus that was done and has already been paid.
Mm-hmm.
So they cannot do anything about that prorated bonus. Like, that is a set amount against the cap, and there's no way around that adjustment.
Yeah, so I think of that money as dead money for your current players. It's not dead money that's out the door. That's what usually dead money is defined as, is the players who are already gone. But this is dead money. It's a sunk cost already. You cannot have this money back. You cannot restructure it in any way. All of that purple, in particular, that associates with those longer term contracts and those higher paid players, cannot be moved around.
Right, exactly. Yep, those are already things you've paid in the past, and you're just kind of paying up for it now in this cap. So the next one, the turquoise, is guaranteed salary. So this is like mostly the kind of base salary that they're getting paid, the annual salary that they're getting paid that's guaranteed. Could also be guaranteed bonuses for the year for various reasons, but mostly for the Ravens, it's guaranteed salary, just regular salary. This, you can technically restructure and adjust this, but it's really difficult because it's already in the player's pocket. There's nothing that they have to do in order to get it. So you'd have to change you'd have to give a lot in order for a player to be willing to change this.
Now, let me ask a question about
Yeah.
that, because I'm looking at particularly at the money on Stanley's line, because it's an enormous amount. It might be $8 million or so. Let's even go back to the graph here.
Yep.
And I'm not going to try and figure out what that is, but I could tell if I could see the scale of your
yeah. I'm pretty sure it's 7.5. I think he's got 7.5 both ways, both as a bonus and a prorated bonus and a guaranteed salary.
Okay, so that's $7.5 million. The obviously the purple cannot be changed in any way, but the $7.5 million under a simple restructure, could they write him a check for that entire salary, say right now, and have that then prorated over some number of years, like the remaining years on his contract?
Yeah, they absolutely could. Yeah, they could change a portion of that. He still has to have a minimum salary, which is dependent on how many years they've been in the league. Something like $1 million for him. But the remaining $6.5 million, they could convert to a signing bonus and extend up to 5 years. So they could convert that $6.5 million divided by 5. So that's what, 5.3 or 1.3. So you could spread the other 4.2 million over the remaining 5.2 million over the next 4 years. So
okay, so the way to think about that is that they're putting 1.3 million of purple into each of the next 4 years to take 5.2 million of blue out of this year.
Yeah, you could. But again, to my point is that he already has to do nothing to get that 7.5 million. So it would really just be to be a nice guy, right? Like to give more money, flexibility to the cap. You'd have to, extend him later on, extend him for more money later on. You'd have to give something to sweeten the deal in order for him to be willing to renegotiate something that's already in his pocket, I would think. So
I would think it might make him less cuttable in the future. So it might actually be in the player's benefit to take a structure. Plus, he gets the entire check right now. He doesn't have to wait for 16 weeks to get it paid out week after week.
That's true.
It's an interesting question for Brian. We got to ask him about that. Has anybody really ever objected to a simple restructure?
Yeah, that's true. So that one, the guaranteed salary, that's piece number 2. So then we've got 2 other pieces: potential savings and restructure, which is the reddish color, and then potential restructure, that's green. So I'm going to talk about these kind of together in one first. So what that is it's the cap, the remainder of the cap after taking off the prorated bonus and the guaranteed salary. So it's the other salary that's due that you can possibly move around. The green, the potential restructure, what that is it's the portion that of the remaining salary that would be covered if you were to cut the player. So if you cut a player pre June 1st, you accelerate all of those future purple prorated bonuses. So you accelerate that, and they hit the cap this year. So for anyone that's due future purple prorated bonuses, if you cut them, which is what I'm calling savings, that number accelerates. So let's take a look at Justin Tucker, for example. We'll zoom in a little bit here. Justin Tucker, he's got a salary cap hit of 5.1 million, and 1.6 million of that is purple for prorated bonuses. He has 2 more years of prorated bonuses that are due. So 1.6 million for 2022 and 2023. So 5.1 million minus the 1.6 million is 3.5 million. So that'd be the green and the red. So if you were cut, those 2 remaining prorated bonuses would be accelerated, and that would be 3.2 million of potential restructure. That's the green. So that's 3.2 million that would still hit against the cap if they were cut. So they would only save the red if they were cut, but they could save the red and the green if they were restructured or extended. So that's kind of the logic behind the red and the green.
Okay, let me see if I can restate that and,
Yep.
and make it be more obvious to me. But Justin
Okay.
Tucker, if you cut him, and this is a pre-June 1 cut, you can save what looks to be maybe $300,000.
Yep.
I'm not sure I have the correct amount, but it's just that sliver of the red at the end of his contract. So the Ravens would never do that. But what they could do is they could extend him for, say, another 2 years, or they could potentially accelerate the money in the green, right? Pay him a check this year, cut him to the minimum salary for any increment. Yeah, cut him from the minimum salary and restructure that money over the remainder of his contract or over extended years.
Right. So there are all sorts of things you can do in the restructure world. You know, there's all sorts of different things you can do by extending or adding void years. There's lots of different ways, and you can spread that money different amounts. But basically, it comes down to, if you cut the player pre-June 1st, you gain the red.
Mm-hmm.
If you extend or restructure, you have the ability to gain back a portion of the red and green based off of the approach you use. So, and the reason for that split is, again, the acceleration of the prorated bonuses. But that's basically what you have to think about. Is the red, you can, if you were to cut him, you would only get the red. Mm-hmm. If you were to restructure, you could get the red and the green. So,
okay.
So those are the kind of the 4 different approaches. You know, the purple stuck, the blue is a little bit harder. The green you can get by restructuring, and the red you can get by either restructuring or by cutting. So then, is that ready to dive in by individuals?
Yeah, the key money is the red money, which is greatest for players in the final year of their contract, because they have one prorated bonus only. There's no acceleration on that, and they have on any future prorated bonuses, and then they have their guaranteed salary, or not their non-guaranteed salary for this year.
Right.
You can save their non-guaranteed salary, is what that's saying. So who's an example of players last year? Brandon Williams?
Brandon Williams, yeah. You know, he's got just the remainder of his paycheck left. Let me look at his numbers here. So he's got, let's see, 6.9 million of prorated bonus, and the rest of his 4.4 million cap hit is all either base salary or a roster bonus. So, that would all be dependent on just this year. So if he were to get cut, you'd get all that red back.
So it's about how much? 6.9 or 7.5 million is his
7.5 would be the savings.
Okay, 7.5 million for cutting. And a lot of people have been saying, hey, Brandon Williams has to go just because he's the biggest number out there. It's not exactly true. It looks like Marcus Peters is a bigger number too.
Yeah, Marcus Peters is really a huge number. I think it gets up to around 11 million that you can restructure. I think between the two, and that's just a huge number that they can play around with. And either of those, they're great players, but maybe you can get another great player in this off year for that amount that you're saving, or maybe you want to extend them. And both of them, if you're happy, well, maybe more Marcus Peters. Brandon Williams is a little bit more on the older side, so it's harder to extend him. But you could do things like the void years and things like that, where it just extends the money without necessarily extending his contract. So, so really Stanley is kind of stuck a little bit. Maybe you can get some money by restructuring the guaranteed salary that we talked about. Get some cash there by converting that. Campbell, I think, is another one where I think they could get some money if they're happy with how he's been playing, which I think they would be. They can. There's $5 million in potential restructure and savings there that they can get. And so that's definitely a little bit of a chunk. Brandon Williams, we talked about. Marcus Peters is a huge amount of money. So he's going to be a really interesting one to see what the team ends up wanting to do and what they feel is the best move. He's kind of a polarizing player, I would say. Yeah. Lots of upside, but also some downside. So
have you seen the last few moves the Ravens have made? They've signed Jimmy Smith. Mm-hmm. They re-signed Devontae Harris in the last day. And you start to play the numbers game and you wonder, who are they trying to cut here? Because they already have, of course, Humphrey. Tavon Young is coming back, and they've already restructured his deal in some ways that'll make it not tremendously profitable to get rid of him.
Right.
In fact, I think they guaranteed his salary for this year at a lower level.
Right.
You can see it in the
Yep, just purple and blue, so not much to move there. Yep.
Okay. But he accepted less money. That was a key element of that. I'm trying to think of who I haven't named here, but the Ravens have 5 cornerbacks without Marcus Peters on the roster. We're not even to the draft yet, and they could certainly have another. So we wonder,
Yeah, Mon Marshall, he's out there, right? Anthony Averett, he's out there. So, and he's played well at the end of the year.
And played well in the time he's had. Certainly, he's going into his 4th year. So one of the things I'm a little worried about is the Ravens all of a sudden are not going to have a lot of young players at corner. They really need to. They're still going to need to draft one. And if they need to draft one, that's one less spot that they have. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so but they always talk about always needing more corners. So it's a hard one for them, hard one to figure out what way they're going to go. So I think but you can see at this chart, and what really jumps out is there's a couple players up top that they've got some room to play around with to make some more cap space. Marlon Humphreys, not much there. You've got the prorated bonus and the guaranteed salary, not much to play around with there, which makes sense because he just signed, right? Tavon Young, like we talked about, just purple and blue. Nick Boyle, just purple and blue. Both those guys just got their contract redone. Justin Tucker, I think they could do a little restructure with his. Depends how long they think he can kick or will be around kicking for. So, I think he could be one that they extend for a little bit longer. Patrick Ricard, I think that's a big name that I think could see a little bit of a change there. That's a decent chunk of change there. A couple $1 million in red that I could see them making a play for if they get tight with money.
When you say making a play there, in his case, it would probably be an extension, right? That's what you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. Or they can push back and, this is a hard year. Everyone's tight and, ask for, a salary cut or something like that. I don't know. You don't think so?
I don't. But
No.
I think an extension is more likely at his age, given who he is and how good he's been. And they can't do anything about the purple money. That's the key.
Right.
It's only the orange, and the orange is very cheap for who Patrick Ricard is.
That's true. Yeah. And then you get to Chuck Clark, purple and blue. The next two, Orlando Brown and Mark Andrews, they're both on the last year of their contracts. But the problem is, even if you extend them, it's likely that the new purple is going to be almost as big as this red anyway. So you're probably not going to save money for them. So maybe you could do a little bit and have the big bonus be played next year instead of 2021. So there are some things you could do there, but not a ton.
In either one of these cases, wouldn't you think the terms of the extension would drive it as opposed to what they would gain exactly in 2021 dollars?
Yeah, that would be the big play would be what the rest of the contract is, not for the couple million or $1 or $2 million of bargaining or extra cash that they could get in 2021. They're not the ones that you would focus on for 2021. They would be focusing on long-term contracts. Yeah.
Can I go back to a philosophical point about this in general?
Yeah.
I want to look at Ronnie Stanley's in particular. And you mentioned there's $1 million in there that's probably they have to put as a minimum salary for him, maybe a little bit more. And let's say you had $6.5 million that you could restructure over the 5 remaining years on his contract, I believe, and make it be with a simple restructure. That means they just write him a check and convert all of his guaranteed salary to bonus this year.
Yep.
Basically, they push $1.3 million to each of the next 4 years. And one of the questions comes up is, why would they want to do that? Because you got to pay the piper at some point. You either have to pay him in 2021 or 22, 23, 24, and 25, depending on which of those two ways you do it. The logic behind this is that the COVID year cap dollars have more value for 2 reasons. Number one is the cap's significantly lower this year because of COVID. Number 2 is, and in the past, there has been a significant inflationary trend in the cap, which made those dollars worth less year over year. And that's why teams for years prorated salary, kicked the can forward, deficits don't matter if you're talking in U.S. economic terms, and they pushed that debt down the road. And for many years, it was a clearly demonstrably good strategy to do so, because the cap dollars were worth less and less every single year. And so in a case like Ronnie Stanley, and particularly in this COVID year, I think it really makes sense for the Ravens to just go write him a check for that amount. And I can't, maybe Brian could come up with a reason, but I can't personally come up with a reason why he wouldn't want that right up front, even if it's just a few months of interest ahead of time.
Yeah, and it probably is true. Yeah, that I think I remember when you spoke to Brian, he definitely thought, that's a easy $5 million that the team would get. So I think that's likely the case, is that, for those big pockets of guaranteed salary, those are kind of an easy, quick hit. So I can see that one as being, something they target first. So yeah, and it like you were saying, it's just all about, how tight the cap is this year for 2021. So every penny is going to count big time. And then, in the future, we don't know what the salary cap is going to be, but I think it's pretty safe to assume it's going to increase a good amount in 2022 over 2021. So anything you can spread it into those years, it's it'll cost you a lot less relative to the cap.
Yes, as a percentage of it. Yep.
Yeah. So I think, the Ravens got some plays that they can make, and to make some cap, and they're in a decent shape already. So, I like where they're at right now. They've got some choices to make and some moves to make to get some more room, but then I think they can be relatively active in the market. So
I love the visualization you've created here. It's such a good way to look at the cap and really see where the money is. Could we go back to it one more time, bring that up? And with the orange is money, you can cut the guy, you can get it back, or you could figure out a way to restructure it and deal with it. The blue, you have to keep the player, but you could still restructure that money and borrow it essentially from future years.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it.
Yep.
And then the purple, you've already spent the money. It's just a matter of accounting for it now, and you can't change this particular accounting.
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting to see how big of a role the purple plays. And especially in those bigger numbers. You think about, like, oh, you've got these big cap numbers, and it's already just, you can't play around with those numbers anymore. That's already paid for, and that's just financial accounting methodology that it's hitting 2021's cap now.
The Marcus Peters contract really sticks out as being that was one that was extraordinarily team friendly when you look at it in this graphical form. Compare it to Stanley's contract, which is all guaranteed money and prorated bonus, or compare it to Brandon Williams' contract, which is still in the final year of the deal, and you can only save half of the amount by cutting him. Marcus Peters is not in the final year of his deal, which is very odd, and you can save more than 2/3 of his salary roughly by cutting him.
Yeah, his signing bonus was really small relative to his contract. Like you're saying, it's definitely a kind of an exception to a lot of the recent contracts we've been seeing. So it's his contract was definitely an interesting one that they were able to agree on, and gave them quite a bit of flexibility going into the back half of his contract to see how they were feeling about how he fit on the team. So,
all right. Is there any younger player here that presents an interesting opportunity? And two I'm looking at right now are Deshawn, Elliott, and Bradley Boseman, who both have just their 4th years coming up. They don't have any prorated bonus to speak of. They might have had a tiny little amount, but it doesn't show up on the graph here as 6th-round draft picks for both of them. And they've earned a bump in pay by the NFL's pay-for-play thing they have.
Yep. I think it's PP. Yeah, I'm not sure.
PPE or something?
Yeah, it might be PPE, but maybe that's COVID. I don't know. But yeah, so, yeah, they increased their base salary increased, jumped up based off of percentage of play, and so I think it depends on extensions. I think both of them are good opportunities for the team to extend and get some money. But again, like you were talking about with Brown and Andrews, I think the extension is really going to play the driver in that contract. The future years and the that's going to be the bigger picture. If they gain some in 2021, that's just gravy. But I think, those are both players that I think the team will want to extend. And, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this COVID year and how extensions work out. So
yeah, I'm very interested in those third-year players because they have three who are off the charts expensive in Jackson, who is going to make so much money it's not going to be possible. They have Brown and Andrews. Both of those ones will be big money extensions that they're going to pay more this year. It's all about the terms of the extension. But then they have three other cheaper guys who also from that 2018 draft, Deshawn, Elliott, Bradley Boseman, and Anthony Averett, any of whom I think could reasonably be extended, would be good choices to do so because, hey, they're third year and they're at that point where they'd really love the divisible benefit that's on the table to get a portion of it in terms of the risk of getting hurt versus some of that financial security you get from signing, say, a 3-year deal right now that extends them, to a point where they still very well could get another free agency deal. But you're not talking about huge dollars. I think Deshawn Elliott maybe or Bradley Boseman, either one probably gets about $9 million over 3 years would be my guess, maybe even a little less.
9 million total, you think?
I'm thinking. I think that contracts are lower this year. This is my basis. They don't have a lot of money coming this year. They're about $2 million. Is that right? Under 2.5. So yep, 2. So you'd really be paying them like $6.5 million for each of the next 2 years. And I'm just thinking that with all of the dollars from COVID are contracted, and it's not a 1-year phenomenon. It is this year, but it's also the next 3 years when teams are borrowing from it, doing the Ronnie Stanley thing we talked about earlier to accelerate money. So I'm just thinking that we might be entering a tighter time, and those are times when players who are kind of on the margin, like Elliott and Boseman, starters, pretty good players from Ravens' point of view, fit well in this system, like playing here, take $9 million instead of trying for $12 million a year from now. It seems like the smarter, better play.
Yep. Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I think it'll be interesting how agents feel and everything like that. But and I think I read somewhere, and I forgot who said it, but it's going to be the quote unquote middle class players that are really going to be hit by this, not the stars and not the veterans or the minimum players. So they are what they are, but it's the middle class players that are going to have to bear the brunt of the cost. So I think that fits exactly with Elliott and Boseman. So. The one thing with Jackson, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't extend him since they've got a 5th year that they can extend, have it in their pocket. I think also he could want to wait a year. So that one, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't get done this year. So we'll see.
All right. Outstanding stuff. This is so good, Dan, and such a great visualization of a very complex puzzle the Ravens are having to deal with as well. I love doing this with you and appreciate having you on as always, my friend.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. We want people to come up with film study shorts. We have these great visual ways to do things. So if you have something you want to show with either video or in particular, if you want to show chart material, happy to do it with you this off season. Give me a shout out on Twitter or filmstudy21@verizon.net. You can send me an email and just give me an idea what you want to talk about. We get back pretty quick and talk about these things. On air, we'll probably be producing a show within a week from the time you tell me what you'd like to do. Dan, outstanding stuff again. Tell me what else you're working on this off season.
Just working on developing my R skills, doing classes and stuff like that, playing around with the NFL faster model and goofing around on that, just trying to learn and enjoy NFL data. So that's really what I'm playing around with this offseason. So,
all right, Dan. Pleasure as always, and we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.